Hey, it's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome to another edition of Q&A with the Coach. Today we have a question from Troll Station 123, who says, "Hey Coach, what are your thoughts on the earn your coach's attention in old school boxing gyms? Usually coaches would show the first-timers the basics right at the beginning, and then they are on their own, because the coaches will focus on their current potential fighters. If beginners want more attention, they'll have to earn it." I know what you're talking about. I've seen gyms like that. I've been in boxing gyms like that. Met coaches like that. And if that is their MO, if that's their business model and it's working for them, that's fine. That's their business. And a lot of gyms are different than that. A lot of gyms are more egalitarian, if you will. Everybody must succeed. Everybody must get a fair shake. Everybody must get a fair dividend of the coach's time and attention. And generally that latter group is trainers and teachers rather than coaches. Not always, but often. What is the difference between a teacher and a coach? Okay. I remember I gave this definition once, and a school teacher wrote me an angry response and said, "How dare you? You've offended my profession and my family, and now you must die." Or, well, maybe not that extreme, but he was very offended. But I'm going to cite that definition again, and this is not meant to disparage teachers. It's an honorable profession. A teacher teaches. Be offended, friends. Be offended. Yes, teachers teach. It's in the name. It's what they do. They convey information and skills and things like that. They teach people how to do stuff. Right? The end. Okay, that's what teachers do. That's not the role of a coach, per se. A coach can teach, but a coach isn't a teacher, right? The job of the coach is not to teach students things. A coach's job is to facilitate success in athletes, to do everything in their power to ensure that the athletes they coach win in their athletic endeavors, that they experience success as much as possible. That's what a coach does, and that may or may not involve teaching. For a lot of coaches such as myself, that does involve teaching. Because I'm more than just a coach, I'm also a teacher, an instructor, a recruiter, if you will. I have to go out and recruit talent to the gym, get people in the doors in the first place. I have to be a businessman as well. Got to set up a website and say, "Hey, folks, come over to this gym and train." And some of them end up fighting and some of them don't. Okay. So I think it would be really cool if I could afford to set up a business model like that and just spend all of my time and attention coaching as opposed to teaching the noobs the ropes, if you will. That's a noble profession too, but I would much, much rather spend all my time and attention coaching fighters to win fights. Unfortunately, at this point in my life, that's not all I get to do. I have to do a lot of other things. There's a lot that goes on into the business of combat sports. Artists tend to make terrible businessmen, and businessmen often tend to make terrible artists, but as far as the business of martial arts, you have to dabble in both. You gotta have one foot in both. So I kind of envy those guys. That may come as a shock to you because you might be coming from that egalitarian stream of thought where you think the coach should be there equally for everybody at the gym. And not all gyms are set up on that same structure. I mean, a lot of gyms out there today, a lot of combat sports gyms, karate classes, Brazilian jiu-jitsu classes, etc., have a system kind of like this. You go in, you sign up, you pay some money for your monthly fees, they give you your uniform or you buy it or whatever, and you get on the mat, you come to a scheduled class time. right? And the teacher teaches you some things, and then you practice those things, and maybe you do some sparring, and then you hit the showers, and it's done, and you come back the next day at the scheduled time, and rinse and repeat, and so on, until you develop some skills, right? And we get into this mindset of that's the way that all gyms are supposed to be that way. Okay, commercial gyms generally are that way. Commercial gyms open to the public generally are that way, with some notable exceptions like the old school boxing gyms. And a lot of those old school boxing gyms, in order to keep the lights on, in order to pay the rent, they can't just focus on those one or two professional fighters who are actually earning money, but they want to and they need to, so they open up the doors and say, hey, average public people, if you want to come in here and hit the bags, get a workout, maybe watch what these pros are doing, get some pointers once in a while, you can do that. That's okay, we'll allow it. Okay, that happens, man. That happens. So out of economic necessity that happens. So for the same reason, we get a very different result than these modern average commercial gyms I described previously, which also, for economic reasons, set up an egalitarian process where everybody participates equally and the teacher is seemingly equally invested into everybody, and if they're not, people get offended and they're like, oh, the coach isn't as invested in me as he is in little Billy over there, therefore I feel upset. Injustice has been done. But again, it's the difference between a teacher and a coach. If you go to school, for example, you have teachers, right? Maybe you're taking a class, a Spanish class, to learn the Spanish language. You want to speak Spanish, right? So your Spanish teacher, let's say this is a public high school. So everybody should get a fair shake, right? It's public, so it should be fairly egalitarian in its processes and methods and results. In theory, anyway. So the teacher should teach you the same material as they teach little Billy over there, right? That only seems fair. And we are brought up with this mindset throughout childhood. It's fair. It's fair. Children have a very strong sense of justice. I was putting my children to bed last night. I have two of them, 1 7, 1 4, and my 4-year-old and my 7-year-old wanted me to tell them one more story before they went to sleep. And I'm tired. They share a bunk bed, and my 4-year-old's on the bottom bunk, so I'm sitting down there because I'm tired. So I'm sitting on the floor next to her. And my 7-year-old on the upper bunk is feeling cheated and slighted. Injustice has been done because Daddy is sitting right next to her sister and not to her, not standing up there telling the story closer to her ears so that her sensitive little ears can hear this better. Injustice has been done, and there were tears shed. But why, Daddy? But why? Because children have that strong sense of justice. Okay, by the time you're a grown adult human, you should learn that the demands of justice in your mind don't always make sense in the real world. And they don't always apply in the real world. And the letter of the law should often give way to the spirit of the law. Remember that story of Jesus in Matthew chapter 13, for all you Bible thumpers out there. He's out there performing miracles and stuff, and the Pharisees, who were the religious leaders of the day, they're trying to find some loophole to catch Jesus in to say, aha, we got you, you did something wrong according to our book here. So they had a bunch of very specific commandments they had to follow, right? And they see Jesus out there, and he's healing people on the Sabbath day. And according to old-timey Hebrew law, there were a bunch of things you couldn't do on the Sabbath day. Work, for example. And they're like, it's not lawful to heal the sick or cast out devils on the Sabbath day. We gotcha. Which is shocking. Just absolutely shocking. Like, here's this guy performing actual miracles, and they're like, we got you in a loophole. Anyway, weird story, but he comes back at them, and he's like, look, guys, we're a pastoral society, right? You guys have sheep. If any of you had a lost sheep out there on the Sabbath day, and it's stuck in a hole, what would you do? You'd go out there and save it, even though the book says, you can only take so many steps. You would do that because you understand the spirit of the law trumps the letter of the law in that sense. And you would go out there, you would save your sheep. And you know what? You know what's more important than a sheep? A person. Okay, so what does this have to do with boxing coaches? The letter of the law we have been taught since childhood tells us everything must be divided into equal pieces for everybody. And the very nature of a fight itself tells you this is not an egalitarian process. This is the winner-takes-all type of thing. Fighting is the opposite of an egalitarian process. It is a meritocracy. What's a meritocracy? You may wonder. Well, it's where you earn it, man. My kids were asking me this question earlier today. Daddy, what is a meritocracy? You may wonder, we're going on an aside for a minute. We'll get back to boxing coaches in a minute here, but I'm going to talk. I'm going to tell you a story, and it might go somewhere. So my children love My Little Ponies because they're little girls. And something about cartoon ponies that talk and can do magic and have unicorn horns and all that, that's very appealing to small girls. Anyway, so they're telling me all about one of their favorite ponies, Princess Twilight Sparkle. She's a unicorn or something like that, and she's magical. And I said, oh, so she's the princess. So is her mother the queen? To which they reply, no. No, her mom's not the queen. She earned the right to be the princess. And I said, wait, so this is a meritocracy, a meritocratic, is that even a word? I just made it up. It sounds right to me. A meritocracy that is also a monarchy. And they were like, what is a meritocracy? What is a monarchy? We had a lesson on politics, my friends. So apparently Ponyville is a meritocracy because Twilight Sparkle earned the right to be princess through her actions and not through blood. How interesting. How interesting. The things we can learn about politics and transversely gym politics through children's cartoons. So I learned something today. I hope you did as well. But yeah, these old school boxing gyms are meritocracies, and there's nothing wrong with that if that is the way they want to run the gym, and if they are able to keep the gym open, pay the rent, keep the lights on, and keep themselves fed doing so. Now, if you find a nice middle ground, such as the ability to run group classes for the average person, where the average person comes in, gets a lesson, has a teacher who teaches them something, and they feel like, hey, I learned something about martial arts, about fighting, about boxing. I feel good. Pat on the back. Yay, me. And then they leave and they come back at that scheduled time for that group class for the students interacting with a teacher, and they have a good time. That's great. And if that gym can also coach fighters, so we have actual coaches with a vested interest in fighters winning fights, and the coaches can dedicate all their time and attention and talents into cultivating those guys. That's the best of both worlds. But again, that takes more time, takes more resources, takes more staff, and again, not everybody's outfitted to do that. So there's my answer. I'm sticking to it. Thanks for watching. Now get out there and train.